Yo, what's up guys? I'm Grandmaster Shaman and welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little bit of time since my last video of this kind. It seems like the previous videos are getting more or less watched by you guys. We have some people who disagree, we have some people who agree, but all things considered, we're going to jump right into it with our next set of 10 anime on my list. So we're going to start with number 60. So Gabriel Dropout is a show about demons and angels coming down from heaven or up from hell, though they seem to be in the same relative world, and they come to the planet Earth to study humanity and to better equip themselves for the future. It's kind of like an exam, if you will, living and going to high school on Earth. And we follow a set of characters, two angels and two demons from that world who have come to Earth and now live amongst humankind. And our main protagonist is an angel who came to make humanity into something great, to make humanity and save everyone. Until she comes across a gaming system on a PC, a computer, and she comes across an MMO where, well, she gets addicted and her angelic status seems to be corrupted. She falls into the world of the gaming otaku and is addicted to gaming to the point where she spends every hour of every day playing it. And I gotta say that this show, the matchup with the angel that is kind of demonic and the demon who can't do anything evil at all and just is really like nice and angelic type of person. The dynamic is really, really good, and not to mention the comedy is great. Satania, the actual demon who wants to destroy humanity and take over the world, is by far the best character. I mean, just the way that she goes about it is great. By not finishing her homework, she's doing some evil deed. It's a terrific show. Definitely worth a watch, to say the least. I'm gonna try and keep these synopses brief so that way you guys can just go check it out quickly. Moving on now to number 59. We got another movie here, Time of Eve, which is basically about this world where humanity has invented humanoid robots that basically help out. And so almost every household has a family robot that helps with the cleaning and the chores and everything that goes on. But there is a cafe called Time of Eve where you cannot tell the difference between a human and a robot. The robots are given basically human expression and abilities in their everyday lives, and they're free to show that in Time of Eve. And so we basically get to see, how the main character goes into Time of Eve and befriends some of these robots that turn out, but that he doesn't know are robots, and how that affects him in his daily life, not to mention his own family robot that led him to this place in the first place. So definitely a movie worth watching. It's a short watch. It's both dubbed and subbed. So I'd highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. Moving on now to number 58. So the reason this one is number 58, I would really like to rate it higher, but we still have a lot to figure out about this show. There's still a lot left to be shown, and we're not sure whether or not we'll actually get a second season. But the Saga of Tanya the Evil is about this guy who, well, shit happened. He's a dick, and he gets shoved by someone he fired into a train. And instead of dying, being X or God, dependent upon the person, saves him, sends him to another place as Tanya, as a little girl, where he grows up again and tries to be a military force for this grand, huge country that's the equivalent of Germany during the World War II times. Um, the show is really, really good. Obviously, all these shows are really, really good. But I gotta say that the Saga of Tanya the Evil really does make it a little bit interesting. We see so many characters, so many main characters trying to make the world a better place, but Tanya is just trying to make the best life for herself. And it's a really interesting way of making the protagonist not really the bad guy, but also really the bad guy. It's a really interesting story. Definitely a lot of great characters, and Tanya is really badass to watch. Hopefully, we'll get more at some point, but as of right now, it's going to sit at number 58. Moving on now to number 57. Judy Tyson is a battle royale anime like you see all over the place, like you'd see in Danganronpa, like you'd see in all these other shows. It's about 12 people who are all represented by zodiac signs, fighting for an opportunity to get their wish granted. It's a pretty basic storyline, and the action scenes are really impressive. Not to mention, there's no real main character throughout the course of the show. You just get to see different perspectives and see who eventually will take the crown of the winner of this year's Junie Tyson. The Junie Tyson also seems to be a kind of, I don't want to say family event, but like you're chosen by the zodiac sign to represent them in this war. And not all the people are necessarily fighters. Some are more passive than others. And there are some that have trained their entire lives just to be in the Junie Tyson. So it's a really, really interesting story. If you haven't seen it, it is also dubbed and subbed, just like Tanya the Evil, just like Time of Eve. Not Gabriel Dropout's just subbed, but this show is dubbed and subbed. Definitely worth a watch if you haven't watched it already. Some amazing fight scenes, and the ending is very interesting as well. Definitely worth a watch. Moving on now to number 56. Now, this show was really, really good. Erased is about this guy who has this ability to go back in time, though he doesn't necessarily have the ability to choose it. He then goes back in time to his childhood, where this girl he found out was in a very special predicament. Basically, he went back in time trying to figure out a murder. And, well, you'll have to watch the show to actually find out what happened. But the dynamic between the main character and the female lead is really interesting throughout the course of the show, especially considering that they're both children, though he still has the knowledge of when he was an adult. And the dynamic of the time travel in this show is also really interesting. He doesn't really have the ability to choose when he goes back in time. He just suddenly goes back in time by an unknown period of time. So it's definitely a really interesting concept. Not to mention it has a lot of heart-jerking moments and is definitely worth a watch. It is also dubbed and subbed, and even I believe has a live action either coming soon or out now. Though I do not plan on watching the live action, but definitely something interesting and worth keeping a lookout for. Moving on now to number 55. So we got another movie here called Summer Wars, which is made by the same person who made Boy and the Beast, Wolf Children, and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, four movies that are all on my top 100s list. Except for The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, I believe that one's a little bit shy, but that's okay. All amazing movies, and this one happens to be at my number 55 spot of all anime that I have. Summer Wars is about this guy who ends up going to this chick's home because she doesn't have a boyfriend, but she kind of wants to pretend that he's her boyfriend so her family doesn't pester her. And so, over the course of the show, this guy solves this algorithm and ends up hacking into a worldwide connection that controls basically everything. Well, actually, more of a countrywide connection that controls basically everything in Japan. And this top secret government program is the one that sent it out and hacked into this program, which now gives the evil program the ability to hack into just about everything, and it makes the entire world a mess. But somehow this is solved through them having to figure out a bunch of miscellaneous things through research and the internet to find out what this thing is and why it is attacking people and what they can do to stop it. And it's a great film, definitely worth a watch. As every show is on this list, it is dubbed and subbed, so you don't have any excuse there. Definitely go check it out if you haven't already. So we're moving on now to number 54. I don't know if this one will ever get a dub, but man, my heart still hurts just thinking about it. Like, this show is a tearjerker. It is definitely, one of the better emotionally jarring shows on my list for sure. I definitely have a lot of memories with this show. It's definitely one of my favorites. But this show is about this guy who goes with this company to help with problems with robots. It's kind of similar to Time of Eve in the sense that most families have these robotic household maids, but he is enrolled in a company that goes and basically fixes problems or handles situations involving them. Some of them a little bit more intense, where the robots kind of go rogue, and there are some of them that are more sad, like the robot is at the end of its life, the storage capacity in its brain is running out. Its body won't hold up any longer, type of thing. So you get both ends of the spectrum on that one. The kind of scary, the kind of sad, and of course the main character and this female robot who has been around for a while and is not exactly very good at her job. There's kind of a somewhat romantic connection between them, despite the difference between them in terms of being human and being a robot. So it is really, really good. The romance in it is pure and lovely, and it's just it wrecks my heart over the course of this show. There's so many good episodes in it. Never really a dull moment, and I definitely definitely think that you guys should check that out as we move on to number 53. So this show has 3 seasons, also no dub, which is kind of sad, but it's one of my favorites. Obviously, is on this list. But oh man, so many good characters. Naruko, the flame chick that likes Naruko. The main character is kind of meh, but it's definitely it never ceases to be entertaining between Naruko and all the crazy stuff that happens over the course of the series. She's basically some sort of deity, and she comes to Earth, literally, comes to Earth to this guy and falls on top of him, and all of a sudden his life is invaded by these crazy happenings, and that nearly kill him most of the time, but it's absolutely hilarious. So many great and funny moments. It's very, very good fight scenes. It's just an all around really good show. So if you haven't seen that one, another one to go and add to your list as we move on to number 52. So Tiger and Bunny is about this old hero who has been in the hero business for a long time in this world where heroes are, basically professional TV, they get sponsorships, they, fight crime and gain popularity and all of this stuff. And he is teamed up with this new up and coming hero, and the two of them basically have to save crime or save the world from crime, and that's pretty much how that story goes. They don't really get along at the beginning, but over the course of the show, the two of them finally see some connections between them and try and help each other out over the course of this series, ending with some pretty intense and really good development there towards the end. So a really, really good show there as well. As we move on to number 51. This is one of the very few shows that does not have a plot that I can watch. It is one of my... I own it. I've watched it more times than I've watched any other series. I've watched this series about 7 times all the way through. Little Lucky Star is just a show that I can turn on the TV when I'm just kind of bored and want to relax and just chill and have it on, even if I'm not really paying that much attention to it. It's just such a good show. So much good humor in it, but so relaxing and not really, too intense. The characters are all amazing. If you watch my top 150 characters video, you'll see 3 characters from that show on my list. One of them being a guy who's not even really on there that much, but he's an absolute great character. But over the course of the show, we see 4 girls in their daily lives. Time does progress over the course of the show, but no real plot. They just kind of go to school and do random stuff for the course of, all in all, 3 years by the series end. So definitely something that if you don't really mind these slower, lower developing shows, that's something to definitely keep an eye on. Well, moving on now to number 50. This one is going to be controversial. All right, before you kill me, before you kill me, RWBY is animated, and it falls under the same category as what you'd see in Japanese anime. You know, a lot of people have this difficult time saying, well, RWBY's not technically an anime, or, well, RWBY's not really, it's not Japanese, it doesn't really count, it's more of a cartoon. I don't really give a shit. I'm going to put RWBY here at number 50. I'm counting it as an anime. You're just going to have to deal with it. So moving in now to number 50, we have RWBY. And RWBY, over the course of five volumes, has been really good. All things considered, Volume 4 was pretty garbage. Volume 2 was kind of meh. But volumes 1, 3, and 5 were really, really good, and I really, really enjoyed them as well. We have a lot of great characters, some of them making my top 150 list as well. Definitely a show that if you haven't seen it already, what are you doing? Why are you not seeing it already? It's crazy. It does have a dub and a sub, and it's really good. Definitely worth your time and effort. The animation is a lot different, but for 3D animation, it's really, really good. And not to mention the fact that it looks pretty crisp even in the first 2 seasons before they really tried to start cleaning things up. You know, Anime in Japan have tried to use 3D models for a long time, and the fact that RWBY, a show that had almost no budget, got it right before them seems a bit odd. But definitely sitting at number 50 is RWBY. Moving on now to number 49. So Magi is a show about this guy. His name's Aladdin, and he is a Magi, which basically there are these creatures called Rook that make up all of mankind, nature, everything, and they are basically able to communicate and relatively control the Rook in their own way. And Aladdin has to go and stop a bunch of evil forces along with his 2 compatriots, who are both awesome and really make the show interesting. It's got a couple seasons along with Sinbad gets his own storyline as well, if you guys are interested in that. Sinbad is one of the more popular characters. I am kind of iffy on him, but definitely something to keep an eye out for. It does lose quite a few points for not really having that ending that everybody really desires. Not to mention there's a lot left that still needs to be answered, and one particular fight that we really didn't get to see very much of, not enough to really satisfy the audience. So there's still a little bit of drawback there, but definitely something to keep an eye out for. Moving on now to number 48, we have Gatchaman! One of the best OST in my opinion. Okay? The best OST in my opinion. I have every single song from the soundtrack, and it is amazing. It is amazing. Greatest soundtrack of any anime ever. And on top of that, it is a really, really solid show. In the first season, we get to see Hajime. Yes, Hajime. The main character who becomes a Gatchaman. And they are basically trying to save the world from alien beings that come down to the planet. And this one alien being in particular is able to basically copy a person's physical appearance and creates havoc all across the country. And Hajime and the other Gatchamen have to stop him and save the world from his wrath. But in the second season, we get to see another alien show up as the previous plot from season one had completely wrapped up. In season two, we get to see another alien who wants everyone to be happy and caring. And everyone should have the same opinion, and everyone should be in unison. And it's kind of like the opposite extremes. You know, the first alien wants to create discord and completely ruin humanity, while the second one was literally only trying to help humanity to become united and closer together and become more of a single unit. Um, Both have very, very interesting uh, plots that really drive you to think about the world that we live in and how we find that happy medium between the two, because both of the extremes are certainly not what we want on this planet. So definitely something that really got me and is a really great show. Moving on now to number 47. Will we get a season 3? I don't know. And until we get one, it's going to sit right around here at number 47. Noragami is a terrific show about this lesser known god trying to become a well known god, get his own shrine, and, you know, become the shit. And he's got this female main character, basically. I mean, she's basically the main character. Um, Hiyori? I want to say it's Hiyori. I'm not really quite sure off the top of my head. All these names kind of slurring together here. But Hiyori, the main character, has this issue where she came into contact with one of the beings from the other world that Yato has to basically try and destroy to stop them from basically taking over humanity mentally, and it drives people to commit suicide and stuff, and kill people and do terrible things and even die just normally. So these creatures from this other world, basically being cleansed by the gods, and Hajime came into contact with one of them. Her spirit ends up being dispelled from her body, and now she has this trouble keeping it in. To everyone else, to normal people, it seems like it's just she's falling asleep, narcolepsy, but she's not. Her soul literally came out of her body. So definitely an interesting one, and it's really, really good and really, really funny. Terrific show. Definitely worth your time. So we move on down to number 46.
Kiss, kiss, fall in love.
So I feel like everyone has heard of this show by now. If you haven't, you probably, I mean, I don't know what you've been doing, but Ouran High School Host Club, another one that which I do in fact own, and it is amazing. It is a great show, absolutely terrific. This main character, Haruhi Fujioka, basically breaks a 6 million yen vase or vase, however you want to say it, and has to become part of the host club and basically flatter girls. And so her biological sex has to be sheltered. Nobody should know it. And it's a mix of kind of this weird romance between her and the host club, the only people that are really in the know of her actual biological sex, and her ability to keep herself secret from the rest of the people in the school. And this kind of mix of the two makes for not only some hilarity, but also the fact that she is from a poor family and everyone else is rich also makes for some really good comedy, as the rich people don't understand things poor people do. You know, they have servants and stuff. They don't have to grind their own coffee beans. They don't know anything about convenience. All they do is they have other people do it for them, and so they're not really in the know or don't really understand social cues of those of a lower class. It's definitely one of the better shows. One of my all-time favorites. I've watched it at least 3 times. It's a really, really good show. Definitely recommend. Moving on now to number 45. So another installment in the Semicolon series is Robotics Notes. So this one is, I mean, every single one of the Semicolon series is really, really good in my opinion. Like really, really good in my opinion. And Robotics Notes is about this club, this robot club that is trying to build not just any robot, but a life-size robot. I'm talking like 7 stories tall, mobile robot, and it's really cool. I'm not really a robotics person, but the fact that they research all of this stuff, they go through trial and error trying to make this robot the size that you would see in an anime actually be able to move and stuff. It's really, really intense. But there's another plot point, and that is the potential imminent destruction of the world. Yeah, I mean, I went very extreme there. A robot building club to potentially could be the end of this entire world. And they drop some kind of hints, things that happened in the past that have ended up making the main character and his really, really close childhood friend have this very strange, I don't want to say disorder, but this something that happens where, they randomly have these kind of mental breakdowns, PTSD type thing go on, where, they go under intense mental and physical pain in kind of sporadic moments ever since their childhood. And they kind of at first it's just a robotics club, and soon they start seeing these hints, these clues into potential threats to the world's safety, and it might just be their giant robot that is able to save the world. If you have not seen this show and you have seen all the other Semicolon series shows or just Steins Gate, I mean, they are in the same world. You see people in the background of these shows, this Chaos Child / Chaos Head, Steins Gate, these type of shows, they are all connected in the same universe. There's even a visual novel that has all of the characters meeting at one point. It is really good, and if you have not seen any of the other Semicolon series, but you've seen one of these, you need to go and do that. I mean, you should do it anyway, but I'm just saying, no need to wait. Definitely worth your watch. As we move on to number 44.
答えはいつも私の胸に
The very first anime I ever watched. The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. Haruhi Suzumiya is God, but she doesn't know it. Or at least that is the thought. We don't know if that's actually true or not, but our main character, Kyon, is dragged into this situation where he is dragged around by Haruhi and basically is encountering all of this stuff because Haruhi can't, or else her mind would basically explode. So Haruhi wants really bad for espers and time travelers and robots and aliens to exist, and to her they don't. She really wants them to, but they happen to, but she just doesn't know it, and exposing God to it could potentially damage the entire face of reality. So Kyon has to live this daily life knowing that these people exist and have to deal with their problems while also not letting Haruhi know what's going on. It is a terrific series. If you have not watched it, you should definitely go and do that. But until we get a season 3, again, I have to leave it this low. It is something that I personally really hate doing as my first anime that I've ever watched, and I own the entire English manga to this point that had been released. But it does fall sadly to number 44 because of no season 3, no ending. It needs that to really solidify itself as a top tier anime. But it does have a special place in my heart because it was the first anime I ever watched. We move on now to number 43, our third to last one as we move on here. So at first, I thought Garo was kind of shit. The first 7-8 episodes with the generic anime villain of the week, really bad. Really bad, honestly. I was about ready to give up on the series. There was a couple characters that I liked, so I decided, you know what, I'll give it a little bit more time, and thank God I did. Because this show, after about episode 7, when they introduce the plot, Leon starts to go out of control, that's when everything starts to pick up. And that is where things really start to hit the fan with Alfonso and the everything that's going on, all of the villains that they have to defeat, the horrors. It's a really, really, really good show. And the top 150 anime characters list that I had just released dropped my favorite character from this series. You'll have to go and watch that video to find out which one it is, but I tell you what, if you have watched it, you'll probably know just by me telling you, but it makes me a little sad. But we move on now to number 42. So another semicolon series show. Here we have Chaos Head / Chaos Child, a show that a lot of people consider the worst of the semicolon series, but I consider it, all of them are amazing, but I consider it ahead of Robotics Notes. And I gotta say, this one really pushes the fabric of reality. As the main character has basically entered a world where your thoughts can basically become reality. And there's a secret government project that is trying to develop something that can create reality for certain people. You see, here's the thing. If you can see something, smell something, taste something, touch something, and it's there to you, is it reality? Because that thing might not be there for everyone else. And that's kind of the point of this show, is the ability to make someone honest to God believe that something is there. To change their perspective to such a degree that it is there for them. It's really, really intense. Just the thought of, it's so interesting to me that, I look around my room right now, but my giant replica World Heavyweight Championship belt, if that thing right there sitting on my shelf, to me, I see it, I've felt it, I've lifted it up, other people have acknowledged that it's there, but what happens if it's not? What if there's one person that beamed that into existence. So I believe it's there. Everyone else believes it's there. But they know that it's not actually there. See how complicated it is? It's really, really complicated to kind of explain this, but it really makes you think, and those are some of my favorite anime. Um, as we move into the last one of this episode, which is going to be number 41, Terror in Resonance. 世界から弾き出された途方もなく細い針の上にいたバランスを取る指 This one is really, really, really interesting and unique in its own way. As these two characters, there's 9 and 12, who cook up these terrorist plots. They blow up buildings. They are attempting to make people see things. They send out riddles. They hack into mainframes. It's interesting because they warn people about it and give them just enough time to solve their riddle so that way everyone can evacuate, and then they blow up a building or they destroy a bridge or what have you, and no one ever ends up dying from it. What their motivation is, why they do it, that you'll have to find out for yourself, but it ends with one hell of a bang. One of the most intense endings and also most dramatic endings to a series. Lots of really touching moments, a lot of when you really understand why they're doing it, things get really heavy. I gotta say that this show is really, 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 really well put together. And gosh, if you haven't watched it, you should. Another show that is both dubbed and subbed. You have no excuse not to watch it. It's a short watch, but it is fantastic. You will not regret watching it. Definitely go and check that out. So without further ado, we went through 20 anime this time. I tried to keep it short and concise so that way, you don't have to sit through too much. And, well, I'll see you all next time. So make sure you click that thumbs up button down below and leave a comment for me. Be greatly appreciated.